I'm Daniel Rhodes, and the day that changed everything started with the pop of plastic under a heel. My 8-year-old's glasses snapped on the porch, while the neighbors pretended they couldn't hear, and I stood there with a car still running, and a stomach that felt like it dropped through the floor. Yeah, that happened. We live in Austin, glass buildings, big sky, a house that photographs beautifully and breathes like it's holding its breath. I run a clean energy company, and people say I'm good at decisions, but numbers don't tuck your kid in at night. You know what I mean? That morning looked peaceful. From the driveway inside, it was tight. Lily had her backpack clutched to her chest, small and careful, and always apologizing to furniture. She asked real gentle if I could pick her up after school. I gave the adult answer that sounds responsible and feels like dodging. I'll try. I might be stuck at the office. Her shoulders dipped just a little. And that little was everything I left anyway, telling myself I was working for her future while ignoring her present. I forgot my charger, came back 5 minutes later, and saw the porch turned into a paper storm. Workbooks, fanned out pencils rolling toward the shrubs, Lily on her knees gathering pages with hands that shook, and Tessa, my wife at the time, standing over her with that neighborhood smile pasted over a private snarl. I said, "What's going on?" and Tessa pivoted like she rehearsed it. Soft voice, hand to her chest. She had a tantrum. Threw her bag, refuses to go to class. I'm teaching consequences. Lily didn't look up, just found a lens cracked in half and tried to make it whole with her thumb. I stared at the shoe mark stamped across a math book and said, quiet and flat, "This doesn't happen again, ever." Tessa blinked like I'd hurt her, asked if I didn't trust her. I said, I wanted the truth, and heard my own voice wobble. I handed Lily the broken frame, told Victor to drive her, and like a man who needed proof more than courage, I went back to work. You can put a body in a meeting while the brain replays a porch. That's what I did. I nodded at charts and saw a cracked lens. I pushed numbers around and heard a kid whisper, "Wait," that night. There were muffled sobs behind Lily's door, and I stood there with my fist raised to knock. And didn't people judge me for that? And I judge me too. Grief does not make you brave. It makes you strategic. Or that's what I told myself while I opened a case of micro cameras from an old product trial and screwed a pinhole into a vent at 1 a.m. hallway, dining room, family room, and that little storage closet Lily avoided like it was a cave. I sat at my desk and pulled up the feeds and said, I just want the truth. I got the truth, and fairness didn't matter anymore. The footage was grainy and sharp. At the same time, Tessa's hand clamped on Lily's wrist, that whisper adults use when they want to hurt, without getting caught. The closet door snapping shut. The line that still makes my hands shake, "Open your mouth, and I'll make you regret it," a heel. Grinding a lens into the tile like it was a cigarette. I watched it twice to make sure stress wasn't making me see ghosts. It wasn't something old and tidal started rising in me, and I did the weirdest thing to anyone who wants a movie-style rescue. I called a lawyer first. I didn't call my old friend, though, because Marcus Hale had already taken Tessa's case. We were taco and ambition guys in our 20s. He went law, I went energy. We swore to stay honest in a world that grades on a curve now. He shrugs and says, "Reality wins." I said, "You represent a paycheck," he said. "I represent clients," and we walked into a courtroom that felt colder than the AC. Tessa in a sensible dress that says, I read parenting blogs, Marcus, dropping a stack of my credit card receipts from the months I tried to shrink grief with bourbon, pattern of instability, he called it, the housekeeper. Maria went up and looked at her hands and said she'd seen me lose my temper. My attorney tugged me back into my seat by the sleeve because I was already halfway up. Lily sat with her shoulders folding inward till she was almost nothing. The judge granted temporary custody to Tessa, pending further evidence. That phrase slid under my ribs and stayed there, temporary further evidence, like a deadline for someone else's pain. Watching your kid leave court, holding the hand of the person who hurts her, stretches time into taffy. Reporters out front with cameras, and questions that sound like they're doing you a favor. Victor opening the car door with that old-school quiet that is the only bandage available. Sometimes the drive home was a whole lot of nothing, just the hum of a city that keeps going while your house is coming apart. I sat at our dining table and stared at a knot in the wood like it knew the answer. Then the doorbell rang, and Lily's teacher was on my porch with a cardigan and a look that said she'd fought with herself in the car. Ms. Park, soft voice, steel spine, she said. I can't watch her flinch one more day. I think you need to see something. Handed me a thumb drive. Said she didn't break laws. Said a friend recovered. Cached footage from my old system before it got wiped, recovered, lit up my chest. We plugged it in at the kitchen island. Videos populated like a swarm. Not loud violence, but surgical meanness, punishments dressed as chores, cruelty on a schedule. Ms. Park said, take this to court. And when you win, take Lily to the park and let her pick the snacks. She was gone before I chose between crying and dehydration. Evidence is one thing, admissible evidence is another. So I hired a forensics analyst who handled the drive like it was bone china and talked in checksums and hashes. He verified chain of custody. He looked up with a small nod that felt like a sunrise. These files are clean, no tampering should stand. I slept 2 hours that night, and it felt like a miracle nap the next. Hearing the room leaned different, even before the judge sat. People can claim neutrality, but our faces tell on us. My attorney moved to admit the footage. Marcus objected. Like he'd already spent the victory, the expert spoke with patient clarity. The judge nodded and said, let's see it. We saw it, all of us. The heel on the notebook, the yank at the wrist, the closet door, the threat, Lily's small body folding into itself, and then cracking open into quiet sobs. Tessa broke too, but in a different direction, stood up and pointed at a child and screamed. She hates me, she's lying. Guards stepped in the gavel, cut the air. The judge's voice turned into a river changing course. Custody to Mr. Rhodes, temporary order. Vacated abuse, referred to the DA. Marcus sat very still, like gravity had arrived late to his party I didn't celebrate. I inhaled because air had come back like it belonged to me again. Healing is not a montage. It's burnt cinnamon toast setting off the smoke alarm, and a kid laughing with her whole face. It's walking her to class. Yourself because you can, and because outsourcing a safe first day back is not an option. It's standing in a hallway pretending to cough, so you don't embarrass yourself with whatever your eyes are doing. It's reading a library book about a rabbit that doesn't feel brave and falling asleep on the carpet by her bed, because the house finally stopped echoing like fear. Ms. Park handed me a drawing at pickup, a dark square with a tiny window labeled Before, and a bright door labeled Now Kids Do Symbolism Better Than We Do. I hung it on the fridge and scheduled therapy for both of us. We talked about fear's favorite chair and how to move it to the curb, about anger as a smoke alarm and shame as a leaky pipe, and love as the plumber who shows up on time. Lily practiced saying no and stop and I need help. Started using them on me too, fair enough. As for Tessa, lawyers do what lawyers do. Papers get filed, hearings get set. I keep showing up with patience and truth, and the steady knowledge that a court can get it wrong before it gets it right. The judge asked me if I missed signs because of grief, and I said yes, not as an excuse, as a fact. And in that moment, Lily saw a dad say yes to a hard truth. Without breaking, that matters more to me than a scoreboard. We took a blanket to Zilker on a Sunday, lay under a sky that looked like the inside of a clean t-shirt. Lily picked snacks like a CEO of sugar gummy bears, carrot sticks, purple popcorn, that should be illegal but somehow isn't. She asked if we could come every week, I said. Let's aim for almost every, because life is life. She nodded like a boss, and told me my ponytail skills were getting better. I told her her courage was teaching heart muscles. I didn't know I had, she rolled her eyes. The way kids roll them when they secretly love what you just said. Later she asked if she could still love someone who hurt her, and I told her love is not a switch. You flip off just because an adult fails. You love is a living thing, and it can be cared for from a distance with boundaries and help and time, she said. Okay, but we can change the locks, right? We did. The locksmith spoke about deadbolts, like poetry. I'll leave you with the messy part that people argue about, and maybe you should too. I recorded my own house without telling my spouse privacy versus safety. Would you do it? Should you? Where's the line? When the person behind the line is 8 and whispering for help. With her eyes comment. Where you land and why tell me if you've seen a court make the wrong call before the right one. If you've ever been the quiet kid people misread as shy, when you were actually scared, if you think we excuse certain masks because they look maternal, and punish certain silences because they look masculine. You know what I mean? If this hit home drop, protect the quiet ones in the comments, and tell me the moment you realized a home wasn't safe, or the person who showed up with the metaphorical thumb drive when you needed it. I'll be in there reading because justice isn't a gavel. It's a handful of small, brave choices linked by love, and love the real kind. Is walking your kid to class on a random Tuesday, waiting long enough for them to turn and grin and wave like the world just got lighter, because sometimes it actually did.